Accessing your storage objects within Windows Azure can be done in a couple of ways, and one of the ones that you can do are the storage explorers, and I just recently downloaded this one here called the Azure Storage Explorer, and this allows us to add in our storage account and then basically access, manage, and administer the types of objects that you want to create within your storage account. Blobs, queues, and tables. So that's one option. We can just use this additional application. If you already have it, you can also use Visual Studio. So we're going to have a look at using the Visual Studio method here to access our storage account as well. So from within Visual Studio, the first thing that you're going to want to do is just go to your Server Explorer over here on the left, and you see that there's already a link here for Windows Azure. Now, the first thing that you need to do to get this available is to install the SDK, the Software Development Kit. So if I quickly just jump back into Azure, right there, you're going to want to make sure that you install the Azure SDK first before you go into Visual Studio to see this. So you can see that we have the similar options right here along the left-hand side as what we actually see in the portal. Not all of them, but most of them are the same. But when it comes to accessing objects within your storage account, you actually have to create your blobs tables of storage either through something like a Storage Explorer or through Visual Studio. So if we do it in Visual Studio, the first thing we have to do is sign in. So I can right-click on Windows Azure, and we're going to connect to Windows Azure here. And we're just going to sign in. Now, what you'll find once you sign in is that anything that you have already created should show up here, and you might just need to refresh this from time to time if something is not showing up. But under storage, if I were to expand this, this is, you see refreshing here, there's the account that I just recently created. So now I can access the objects right from within here. There's blobs, queues, and tables right there. So I can use either something like a Storage Explorer or Visual Studio to get started with accessing my storage objects. But one other thing that you'll find in here as well is this one here that says Development. Now, when you choose the Development option, you do still see the same three of blobs, queues, and tables, but all of these ones are not stored within Azure. The storage development option is for storing locally, but it emulates the exact same type of storage that Azure uses. In other words, it posts the data and the objects and the management of those objects by using HTTP. It just happens to be stored locally. So it actually configures a storage emulator that accepts HTTP-based requests. Because, of course, if we go back into our Azure environment and look at the dashboard here, the means by which we gain access to our objects is through HTTP posts. So we need to have those available to us when we're using our external applications to manage our objects. So again, you just need to make sure that you sign into Azure in this case, and then make sure that your storage account appears. And again, if it doesn't, maybe just do a refresh a couple of times. But then when you're actually wanting to make sure that you're posting directly to Azure, then you want to make sure you're using your storage account that shows up here and not the development one. Again, this is just all emulated local storage. But now with this option here under tables, for example, I can right click and I can choose create table. So let's just do test table. And there we go. So now we have our table created, and that's now accessible through either our Visual Studio environment or perhaps one of the storage explorers that you might have downloaded previously. But again, what you don't see is that object showing up directly in your management portal here. So again, storage account is simply the placeholder. You use something like Visual Studio or something like one of the Storage Explorer to create the objects and to access the data.